Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. On behalf of White Energy, I'd like to welcome you to this investor webinar. Today's session is in listen mode only. If you have any questions at any point, please type them into the chat box. We may address them during the Q&A or at the end of the presentation. Joining us today is White Energy's Chief Executive Officer, Greg Sheahan, who will provide an update on the drilling program at Specimen Hill and broader exploration activities across the portfolio. Welcome, Greg.
Hi, Simon. Thanks. Nice to talk to you.
Yes, you too, Greg. Today we're actually going to sort of do a bit of a Q&A with the presentation. So, Greg, just to start us off, can you give a brief overview of the company for those who may be new to the story?
Sure. Um, Historically, White Energy was a company known for its coal briquetting. It had the exclusive worldwide license for a coal briquetting technology. The technology was developed by the CSIRO, and it's a means by which lower grade coals or coal fines or coal waste can be converted into briquettes, which can be used as a substitute for higher grade varieties of coal for energy production in particular. Um, but about 2 years ago, the company decided it should embrace the trend towards electrification and other forms of energy. And so it acquired a company called Fiddler's Creek Mining Company, which owned mineral tenements in the Northern Territory and Southeast Queensland. And its focus, that is our company's focus, was to explore for copper in particular, as being what is required for the electrification and greener energy aspects of the transition to electrification throughout the world. So we embraced that. We acquired the company. Um, that's where our focus is mainly at the moment, but we still have a residual interest in coal briquetting in a joint venture in South Africa, which I'll talk about shortly.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Greg. Can you just talk us through the board before we get into um, the projects?
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very impressive board, led by very experienced professionals. Brian Flannery, of course, a highly successful mining entrepreneur. Vince O'Rourke, highly experienced in logistics, having run Queensland Rail for many years. Mike Chapman and Keith Winehouse, both very experienced mining executives. It's a board with substantial experience. There's no doubt about that. Integrity, as well as they have a keen interest in the company, evidenced by the fact they own 45% of the shares in the company, and their interests are aligned with those of the shareholders. So it's a very good company to work with. It's a very good board to work with.
All right. I know we just at the start there, you talked about you sort of pivot towards copper, and I guess we probably just want to touch on the copper market. And so you sort of suggested that it was central to the electrification and decarbonisation. And I know when I'm scrolling, the prices of copper are all in the news almost daily. Can you sort of share your perspective on the copper market and why White Energy has shifted its focus towards copper?
Well, I mean, it's a consistent story. I mean, it was a lead article in the Fin Review this morning about the imbalance between supply and demand in copper and the need for copper. And it's only going one way. Um, the trend is upwards. And interesting to note from that particular article, was talking about the Resolution mining deposit in Arizona, is that some of these even large scale deposits now are not coming online for another 10 years or so, and the existing large scale deposits and mines such as Escondida are starting to find it more difficult to extract copper, and it's at a greater expense. So there's an increasing disparity between demand, which is ever increasing due to the burgeoning middle class expansion in India and China and throughout Southeast Asia, and supply. So supply is the real key here, and that's one of the reasons which underpinned our company's decision to embrace that increased demand and try and find some copper. So we see it just going one way at the moment.
All right, excellent. I guess that leads us into your main project, Specimen Hill. Can you give us an overview of the project and what initially attracted you to it?
Yeah, sure. So initially, this was a farm-in. We discovered it through a geologist who we didn't discover the project, but we discovered an opportunity through a geologist who was known to one of our directors, who had been working on this particular project for another company called Signature Gold Proprietary Limited, and they were a subsidiary of a larger uh, Aquis listed company called Tectonic Gold. It's now known as Tamar Minerals. And they were principally focused on gold, locating a gold deposit. But the geologist who was speaking with our director indicated that there were quite a few shows and examples of copper, both at surface and outcrop, and it was highly prospective for copper. So that piqued our interest, and in 2023, we undertook a little bit of due diligence sampling in the tenements, and in 2024, in February 2024, we entered into a farming agreement with Signature Gold, which allowed us to, through various expenditure milestones, achieve an increasing interest in the tenements and the mining information and so forth. And we've already earned a 51% interest in the Specimen Hill project through expenditure of $1 million in the first 12 months. We're very keen on the project. We're well on the way to earning a further 25% through the current drilling project, which is underway. And we see this as a highly prospective area. It's a greenfields area. There is very little subsurface data available. It has historic workings for copper and gold, but we see this as a particular venture which is worthy of a lot of interest in terms of our exploration budget going forward. Yeah, we think it's a pretty interesting area. We're focused on Specimen Hill at the moment.
All right, now you just sort of talked about you're currently doing drilling. Can you give us an update on the program? I know there's probably some things you can and can't say, but if you just give a quick update on that.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, there's very little subsurface information there. So we decided, after having done a fair bit of soil sampling, geochemical sampling, geological mapping, and the undertaking of a heli-mag survey last year over what we understood at the time to be the most prospective areas of the tenement, we thought that the next step, we do need to know what's subsurface. We do need to embark upon a drilling program to start guiding where we go from here. And so a month or so ago, we sputtered a first hole. There's a 6-hole drilling program. We've drilled 5 at the moment. We're in the 5th hole at the moment, across 3 areas across the tenements, which were to test IP anomalies and magnetic anomalies, as well as to retest a copper grade which had been encountered in one of the previous holes drilled by Signature. So we're at the end of that program, but what we're doing with that program now is we wish to expand it into January next year. But we now have a much firmer understanding of the subsurface geology, which we didn't have before. So we know we're best to look now. We know that there are potential anomalies, particularly magnetic anomalies, which we need to be cautious about because there are large amounts of magnetite we have encountered through the drilling program. The results have yet to come in terms of being sent off to the lab for sampling, and we haven't properly cored the holes yet, but that's all to come. So we're at the basic stage at this point, but we've already planning our next drilling program to use what we've done so far as a base going forward, and we also going forward are planning to embark upon some geophysics at the moment, but that's at a planning stage. We need to work that out, what we're going to do if we do anything in conjunction with a further drilling. But this is all it's in the planning stage at this point.
All right, so you sort of pretty well covered the next steps at Specimen Hill there. Is there anything else you want to add, I suppose, or before we move to the next project?
No, there are a number of target areas. So we've identified three at this stage that we drilled in this last program. There's more to come. There are rock chip samples we've seen in another area in the tenements, which we're particularly interested in exploring further. And so we will get together and regroup once we have the results in from the latest program and map out the path to the next series of steps we're going to take to better understand the entire area. But we know a lot more now than we did before.
So, sorry, just when do you think those results from the current drilling will be in?
Well, samples can be sent if they're not sent in the next week or so, will be sent to probably ALS,
Yeah,
depending on their turnaround. It can be 3 to 4 weeks or thereabouts, depending on their turnaround
yeah,
and the time of year. It's not the best time of year to be putting samples into a laboratory, but we anticipate um, mid to late January, we
yeah.
should have some results in. Anything will be announced to the market, of course.
All right, beautiful. Let's move on to your other projects, I suppose. So you have projects in the Northern Territory and some in South Australia. Can you give us a quick overview of those
Yeah, sure.
and how
Starting
those
with
begin?
the Tyndall project in the Northern Territory. It's effectively an enormous series of tenements. It's 11,000 square kilometres of tenements, and there are quite a number of areas which have been identified through geochem sampling and some historic seismic data and on ground uh, geochemical work. We've identified five principal target areas through those sampling programs, and we're working through each one. What has been determined at this stage is that there is substantial anomalies for both strategic minerals, that is copper, cobalt, zinc, lead, as well as um, uh, gold, silver as well, and some rare earth elements. So we're particularly interested in a couple of areas there, but we need to de-risk it in terms of the sheer size of these tenements by undertaking some geophysical work there, which is also in the planning stage. Right at the moment, we're focusing on Specimen Hill at the moment, but there has been some encouraging signs that it's in an interesting area. Again, another greenfields area. So there's been very little mineral exploration in the tenements that we're talking about. There has been some petroleum exploration there with the Beetaloo sub-basin, but there's very little data. We're also using as part of a collaborative relationship we have with a research facility in Quebec called INRS. We're using a deep crustal lithological um, study and imaging to better appreciate what is beneath the surface at a tectonic level to try and guide where we should be focusing our attention given the size of these tenements. So that's something we've used, particularly in Tyndall, given the size of them, but it's also something which is uh, we've we've used to focus our attention in Maranoa, and it's the Maranoa project is situated in southeast Queensland around the Texas area, and that in particular there's three tenements there we're particularly interested in, and one of them is showing some good anomalies for cobalt, and that is the War Effort tenement. Um, Again, we're putting that on hold for the time being. At least we'll undertake some sampling we anticipate next year. Um, but just briefly, I'll also speak about our tenements in South Australia. We have the Robin Rise project, which is situated in the G9 structural corridor or the Olympic Dam structural corridor in South Australia. So it's near Coober Pedy, but it's also near the Prominent Hill and Carrapateena mines. It's a particularly interesting area. We have undertaken a bit of drilling there last year, and while it didn't determine the existence of a substantial mineral system through the drilling we undertook, we have far better understanding of the geology of that area where we are now. And it's in a really good area for IOCGU and IOCG deposits. So it's a great interest. The other one is Laura Creek, which is one we acquired last year through the use of our collaborative relationship with the INRS in Quebec, using this deep crustal lithographic architecture type analyses and imaging, which pointed us in the direction of Laura Creek tenements, which are also in this G9 structural corridor, which hosts the Olympic Dam, Carrapateena, and Prominent Hill mines. So we have yet to get on the ground in a substantive way with Laura Creek, but we're anticipating we'll undertake some at least desktop studies and historical data studies next year to point us in the right direction of what we should do there in terms of geophysics or sampling. So that's really a quick overview of the exploration projects
Yeah, great.
going forward.
Thanks, Greg. I think there's some excellent opportunities and upside in all of those projects. I guess you sort of touched on it at the start, but obviously, what energy was historical focus was the coal briquetting, and I'm sure a lot of existing shareholders probably were or are excited about it and the opportunity there. But I guess, can you just give an overview of the tech and how What Energy intends to monetize it going forward?
You know, as I mentioned at the outset, the coal briquetting or binderless coal briquetting technology is one that was developed by the CSIRO, and the intent was to use and utilize coal waste, subbituminous coals, which otherwise could not be used in energy production, to treat them in a way and to manufacture briquettes, which could be used as a substitute for higher grade coals. And the binderless coal briquetting technology means, as the name suggests, it doesn't use a binder like a chemical binder, and so it's much cleaner in terms of emissions than a briquette using binders. At the moment, we have a joint venture with a company called Proterra, which has significant interests in South Africa. And there are substantial energy deficiencies in South Africa, which means that there is a substantial interest in this technology for converting coal wastes and coal fines, which are very prevalent in South Africa. It's estimated there's something like 1 billion tons of coal fines, which will otherwise require waste treatment or some other means of getting rid of it. We can actually convert those coal fines into briquettes, which can be used for energy production in South Africa. It's a cleaner way of dealing with it. It reduces waste, the waste reduction, the costs involved in rehabilitation, etc. So through our joint venture, there's been a fair degree of interest in this coal briquetting technology, which will enable us to monetize that technology going forward. We have a relationship with a company in the US called Camaric, which manufactures the particular machines. We're in negotiations with them and with our joint venture partner in South Africa to take this forward into the next year and develop it from there. So there is some interest there in South Africa to use this technology.
All right, excellent. I guess my final sort of question or thing I want to bring up that you recently announced an entitlement offer that closes next Wednesday, I believe.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
correct, Simon. So we announced it on the 19th of November. We're hoping to raise $3.5 million to be used towards the exploration projects and for corporate purposes. It's at a 10% discount. Although I noticed this morning there was a slight increase in the share price, so it's slightly more than that now. It closes next Wednesday, as you mentioned, and I would encourage all shareholders to take up their entitlements and apply for more entitlements if they can. We wish to be in a position to hit the ground running next year with the exploration programs, particularly Specimen Hill starting off to expand that drilling program, undertake some geophysics to de-risk both it and the other projects going forward. And yeah, I encourage all shareholders to participate if they can.
All right, excellent. Thanks for your time today, Greg. And thanks to everyone who joined us. We appreciate your continued interest in White Energy. Greg, did you just want to do you have any closing comments before we end the webinar?
Oh, look, if anyone has any queries, they want to put them to me directly through my contact details, email, phone, by all means, please give me a call. I'll be happy to answer any questions outside of the webinar and at any time.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Greg.
Oh, well, thanks very much for hosting me. Thanks, Simon.
No worries.
All the best.